All right, here we are again. I'm glad you could join me for this video. So, next step is to clean these up a little bit and drill some holes and start the heat treat process. So this video is going to be mostly about the heat treating of the 1084 15N20 Damascus. Now, there's lots of ways to do this. If you look online, could be a little overwhelming because everybody's got a different temperature they heat treat at. Everybody's got a different normalization process. What I do, because I know where I got the steel and they have their own normalization process and hardening process, I just go off of their directions. This is New Jersey Steel Baron 1084 and 15N20, so I'm going to heat treat as though the whole thing's just 1084. So on here you can see they've got a normalization temperature and a length, a soak cycle. So the first cycle 1650 for 10 to 15 minutes, second cycle 1500 for 10 to 15 minutes, and the third cycle is 1350 to 10 to 15 minutes. So that's what I do. When I got my kiln, it actually had some presets for 1084 or 1085 it says, and their temperatures are different. So I just err on the side of caution, and to determine which heat treat process is best out of all the things you can read online, I just go with the manufacturer's recommendations. And then down here they've got the hardening temperatures, 1450 to 1480, 5 to 10 minute soak, and it'll tell you what your expected Rockwell hardness is going to be. And then it also has directions for the soak time and just different things to read through, tempering, all that stuff. So on the New Jersey Steel Baron site, you can get this. It's just a download, and I printed it out, so I've always got it out here. But I just go by these directions. So I'm going to get on the grinder and start cleaning these up a bit and rough in some bevels and then drill the holes, and we'll get to the heat treating. I'm going to have my mask on, so I'm going to do all the talking really quick. So I've got 80 grit. Essentially what I'm doing is I'm just going to get all these 80 grit marks out from the surface grinding, and when I do that, I grind at an angle. This does two things. It gives me an effective, larger length of a platen. So for instance, 2 inches this way, but if I angle it like this, I've got almost a 3-inch platen. So it's easier to get a nice straight line when you angle. And then the other reason is my angle marks will be different than the marks going this way, so I can tell when I've got them all out. So let's get the kiln going. So our first heat is going to be our first normalizing heat. Since this material has gone through a lot of change, we want to reset the structure inside of the steel, the grain structure. So we're going to normalize. Go to my favorites here and look for my 1084 cycle. There it is, 1084 1650 is going to be the first cycle. So we're going to start this up with no delay, and we just have to wait for this to heat up to about 1500 or so, and then we'll pop the blades in there, let it get up to 1650, and then we'll soak them about 5-10 minutes and then let them cool down to black. All right, we got to put some holes in these tangs before we start the heat treat. So I'm going to use my template here, and then make a little mark right in the middle. And again, I'm using the template because this is a set and I want all these handles to look very similar, if not exact. And I'll put a little punch in all these to give the drill bit a place to start. Give these guys a little chamfer. Because my kiln is a vertical kiln, they hang, so I have to drill an extra little hole that's about 1/8 of an inch so I can put my pins in it to hang them. All right, we're pretty close to 1500, so I'm just gonna pop these in here. And we'll let this guy heat up to 1650 so these can soak for just a bit, and then we'll hang them on the rack till they dry to black. And 1650. Turn that off. All right, let's get these out of here. Let this kiln cool back down to so we can do the 1500 degree. Wow. All right, we're doing the next step, and this one is 1500 degrees. The blades, they cooled to black, so I slapped them back in here. We're at 1300 degrees right now, so a couple hundred more degrees soak, and then we'll let them cool again. All right, here we are, 1500. Let's get these on the rack. See if I can do this without dropping one this time. Okay, let them cool to black. Let's get the 1350 cycle started. And these knives are at black, so we can put these in here as soon as we get close to 1350. All right, let's get these knives put back in here. There we go. Okay, over in the forge, I've got a piece of steel heating up so I can heat up my oil to about 120 degrees. And right now we should be able to pull these out and let them cool to black. This is the last normalizing cycle. So once these have cooled a little bit, we can start the hardening process. All right. So I'm going to cancel this and let this thing start to cool just a little bit. Put this in the oil to heat it up a bit. I got a thermometer in there so I can keep track of the temperature. That took us up to about 130 degrees, which is going to be perfect. Now let's get our hardening temperature ready to go. Let's see, 1084, 1475. That's what we're going to go with. So let's get that started. Our temp's at 1232, so we're just going to put these blades in here now. There's the paring knife and the brisket chef knife, which still has a pattern from it falling on my floor mat. And then the Santoku. Okay, so 1475, about a 10-minute soak, and then we'll dunk them in the oil. And here we are, ready for a soak. 5 or 10 minutes is all it should take. 1084 is very forgiving when it comes to soaking, because this stuff, really, you don't need to soak it. As soon as you're up to your temperature, it's pretty much good to go inside. Some steels do require a soak, so just make sure you're doing what the manufacturer recommends on your temperatures and soaks. Here goes knife number one. We'll start with the paring knife. And this one, I'm not too worried about this one bowing because it's pretty small, so we're good there. See that nice pattern in there. Here we go with knife number 2, which is going to be the chef knife. This one, I am concerned about bowing. And it bowed a little bit. See if we can straighten that out a hair. Oops, a little too much there. All right, let's put that on the rack and see if it'll stay straight. And the last knife is the brisket, which I'm almost certain this is going to warp, but fingers crossed. Let's see what we got here. That doesn't look too bad, actually. I thought there was going to be a lot more warp than that, but I think we kind of lucked out here. Just a little bit up front, a little bit right there, and oh, that is good now. So we'll let this hang and we'll check it periodically. And then back over at the kiln, so I'm going to use this to do the tempering. So this thing retains heat really well. So we need to open this up and cancel the cycle. And then just let this thing basically let the heat escape. And then it's probably going to take 30-45 minutes for this to get down cool enough to do the temper. So in the meantime, I'll watch these knives, make sure they don't warp while they're cooling. And then we'll come back here and slap them in this for the exciting part, the tempering. While I'm waiting for my kiln to cool down, I'm going to show you what I intend to do. So the Santoku and the brisket knife both have a little bit of a warp right up toward the front here that I couldn't quite get out. And this one, it's not bad. I could probably get it out with the grinding, but I'll just I'll get it out in the temper. So what I'll do is I'll run one cycle at 350 degrees to get these things softened up a little bit, and then I'll put these both in a little jig that I have. And what I do is I put a piece of metal like this, and then I figure out where the warp starts, and then I'll clamp this down here, and then I'll put another clamp past where the warp is to pull the warp past straight to the other side, and that way when it tempers it'll pull that warp out either a little past straight or right at straight, and then that way the warp will be gone and grinding will be easier. So I'll put this on here, this one on this side, and then I'll clamp them both and then pull the warp to the opposite side on each of them. And most of the time that pulls the warp out, and then they end up perfectly straight. So this thing's cooled down to the point that we can probably start the temper cycle. So I have a few different temper schedules on here, and have this where is it, 350 right here. So I have a 350 temper cycle, and what I like to do for the first little bit on this is kind of sit here and watch the temperature, because this is a schedule that I did, so my ramp speed and all that stuff should probably be adjusted to the point that it works a little better. But once the steel and the internal temperature of the kiln become equalized, then I can leave it alone. But you can see right now that it's hopping up to 357 degrees. So I'll open this back up and let some of the heat out so it'll drop back down. So what I want to do is get it to where it sticks at about between 350 and 355, and then I can just let it go. I don't have to worry about it anymore. But most likely I just haven't set the schedule up correctly. The ramp speed's probably off something, but I'll get it figured out in the future. But for now, I just kind of watch this for the first little bit until everything equalizes. The first temper cycle is done. Now I need to address the warps in these two knives, and they're really straight except for right up here toward the front, and they have like a nice little bow in them, just a little too much to grind out. So what I do is I'm going to take this, so this one's bowing this direction, so I'm going to lay this on a flat surface and look at it from the side, and wherever I see this start to lift up off of the flat surface, I'm going to mark it. That way I know to put the mark even with my piece that's going to raise it up, so I can bow this in. So this one starts bowing right here at this mark, and this one starts bowing right here at this mark. So I'm going to take my piece of angle iron right here, and I'm going to put this right here even with this mark. And then what I want to do is place it on this piece of angle iron like so. And when you do two of these, it gets a little tricky. So I kind of want to put these in the same spot. And then this one, so this one's also bowing this way, so I want to actually put this about where it's going to be and then flip it this way, like that. Now, I just need to lock these down in place. like this. And then walk another one up here, just so I can keep these flat. So they're going to be flat up until here, and then they kind of bow out like that. So then when I get to up to here, I just pop another one of these up here like this, kind of go toward the center of the blade, and then just crank this down until these bow this way past center. And if you leave enough space in between here to look down, you can see when those are bowing enough past. So yeah, I've got those bowing pretty good. I'm going to move this one up closer to that line. Just to keep the bow more toward the front instead of bowing out past here. And then that is about where I want it. So now I'm just going to take this whole contraption and put it back in the heat treat oven and temper one more cycle. And then once I cool these, they should spring back a little bit, but not back as far as they were. So it'll straighten out that bow just a little bit. So here are the knives. In case I forgot to tell you, my temper cycle for my cutlery is 2 cycles at 2 hours and 350 degrees. That usually makes for a nice hardness for this cutlery. So the 2 that were warped, the Santoku, the warp came out almost all the way, but well enough in grinding range. So that's going to be good. And then the brisket knife, the warp came all the way out. So we've got 3 perfectly heat treated knives. That's going to be it for these as far as heat treat goes. So from here, it's just getting my bevels in, my edge thickness correct, and from there it's hand sanding and handle and finish work and all that good stuff. So a couple more videos and we'll be done with this series. I appreciate you stopping by, and thanks for watching.